I never thought I'd find myself in a situation like this. My name's Mike, and I've been with my wife, Lisa, for nearly 10 years. We seemed solid, or so I thought. We had our fights, sure, but overall I believed we were in a good place. She was always bitchy, sarcastic, and quick to throw a jab, but I figured that was just her personality. Nothing too serious, at least not until recently. Lately, I started noticing little things. Lisa, been more distant, secretive almost. She'd hide her phone, get defensive whenever I asked who she was texting. She'd come home later than usual, excuse herself with some bullshit about work meetings or visiting her sister. But I also noticed her phone was more locked than before, and she'd be quick to change screens if I walked into the room. I brushed it off at first, telling myself I was just paranoid. I mean, she's a bitch, but she's not a cheat, right? Then I started noticing the small things that broke my confidence even more. Her phone's screen time kept increasing. She was always on her laptop when she thought I wasn't paying attention. She'd lie about where she was going, saying she was running errands or meeting with friends. But I could see her sneaking her phone into the bathroom or hurriedly locking things up if I came near. It was like she was hiding something, and I felt that gnawing suspicion growing every day. One night I came home early from work because I wasn't feeling well. I decided to surprise her, thinking maybe she'd be happy to see me. I walk into the house and hear strange noises coming from the bedroom. My heart starts pounding. I quietly tiptoe closer to the door. What I see will haunt me forever. Lisa is in bed, but not alone. She's with this guy, and they're doing it. I saw her legs wrapped around him, her face twisted in pleasure. I froze, completely stunned. My stomach sank so hard I thought I might throw up right there. It wasn't just a quick fling either. They looked comfortable, like they'd been doing this for a while. I couldn't believe it. It was so surreal, like I was watching a nightmare unfold. How could she do this? After all these years, after all the promises, I was furious, but more than anything I felt betrayed, like the very foundation of our marriage was a lie. I didn't make a sound, just backed out slowly, trying to process what I'd seen. I knew I couldn't confront her right then. I needed to think, to plan what to do next. That discovery hit me like a freight train. I kept replaying everything in my head. The lies, the secret texts, the late nights. I knew I had to confront her, but I also knew it wouldn't be simple. Lisa is a bitch. She can lie with a straight face, twist the story around, make herself appear innocent or like I'm overreacting. Still, I couldn't ignore what I'd seen. My mind kept racing, wondering how long this had been going on, who else knew, and how I'd respond when I finally talked to her face to face. I spent the night staring at the ceiling, feeling a mix of anger, sadness, and disbelief. I thought I knew this woman, the woman I loved, or at least thought I loved. Turns out I didn't really know her at all. And now I was faced with the brutal truth. She had been cheating on me with her little containment strategy meetings with that developer guy, Mark, the one who's been working on her forest fire prediction algorithm. They'd meet in some remote cabin, and I guess that's where she was hiding all this time. That realization made me feel sick. I had trusted her, and she'd been lying to my face. I knew I couldn't just let this go. I had to decide what my next move was, and I already knew it wasn't going to be easy. The next morning was a blur. I woke up feeling numb, my mind racing from the shock of what I'd seen. I couldn't just ignore it, even if part of me wanted to pretend I didn't see anything. I knew I had to confront her, but I also knew the kind of woman Lisa was. She was manipulative, bitchy, and a master at lying her way out of anything. Still, I couldn't just sit there and do nothing. I decided to wait for her to come home from whatever bullshit she was planning to do that day. I was already brewing a plan, trying to think about how I could catch her in another lie or get her to admit what she was hiding. I kept going over all the possible scenarios, but honestly I was angry enough to do whatever it took to get some answers. When she finally walked through the door that evening, I could see the defiance in her eyes. She was wearing her usual smirk, like she knew she'd gotten away with something. I didn't greet her, I just stared, letting her know I wasn't going to play her games anymore. She looked at me, rolling her eyes, and said, What the hell is your problem now?" I didn't waste any time. "I saw you, Lisa. I saw you in bed with Mark. Or should I say I saw you cheating on me. How long has this been going on?" Her face froze for a second, then she let out a bitter laugh. Oh, please, you're overreacting. You saw what you wanted to see, probably just some stupid misunderstanding. You're paranoid like always. I clenched my fists. No, Lisa, I saw everything. You and Mark in that cabin doing God knows what. Don't lie to me. I want the truth now. Her eyes narrowed. You're crazy. You don't know what you saw, maybe. I was just talking to him about work, or maybe I was just venting. Why do you always assume the worst? I couldn't believe how she was twisting things. I wasn't some fool who was going to buy her bullshit. Because I saw you, bitch. I saw your legs wrapped around him. I saw you moaning, looking like you actually enjoy screwing him. How do you explain that? She scoffed, crossing her arms. You're disgusting. You're jealous and insecure. Maybe if you paid more attention to me, I wouldn't have needed to find someone else to talk to. Honestly, I was just bored. Mark's a good guy, and I needed someone who understands what I'm going through. That line made my stomach turn. What are you going through, Lisa? Tell me, what's so bad that you have to cheat? Is it because I'm not good enough? Or maybe because you're too bitchy and selfish to work things out? She snapped back. You're just a boring, predictable loser. You think I cheat because of some problem with you. No, I do it because I want to, because I can, and I don't care what you think. You're not enough for me anymore, and I don't owe you explanations, so get over it. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. The anger bubbling inside me was threatening to explode. But beneath it all, there was this deep, crushing sadness. I had loved her once, believed we were solid. Now I saw her for what she really was, a dishonest, manipulative woman who'd rather screw around with some guy than face her problems with me. And I knew, deep down, I couldn't keep pretending everything was fine. I stared at her, trying to keep my voice steady. You can lie all you want, Lisa, but I know the truth, and I'm done. I'm done with your lies, your cheating, your bitchy attitude. I deserve better than this. She rolled her eyes again and turned away, dismissing me like I was nothing. That's when I decided enough was enough. I told her I wanted her out, that I was filing for divorce. She laughed, called me a pathetic, jealous idiot, and said I was overreacting. But I knew I couldn't let her get away with it. That day was the turning point. I started planning my next move, thinking about how to get her to admit everything, how to make her face the consequences of what she'd done. I didn't want her to walk away unscathed, and I knew I had to be strategic. Her lies involved her containment strategy, meetings with Mark, her secret trips to that cabin. I needed proof, time, and patience. I could feel a storm brewing inside me, one that would change everything. I started gathering evidence, digging into her phone, checking her emails, and even talking to some of her friends who might have known about her affair. I didn't trust her anymore, and I knew I had to be prepared for whatever she threw at me next, because I wasn't going to let her ruin me or walk away without consequences. This wasn't just about cheating. It was about betrayal on the deepest level, and I was going to make sure she paid for it. Over the next few days, I threw myself into gathering anything I could use. I knew her pattern. She lied, then lied again, and always tried to manipulate her way out of trouble. I wasn't going to give her that chance. The first step was to find out exactly how deep this went. I started by going through her phone in secret, knowing full well that if she caught me, all hell would break loose. But I was past caring. I needed to know the truth. What I found was worse than I expected. Texts between her and Mark were full of flirtation, plans to meet again, and mentions of the cabin. There were also messages from her friends talking about her secret project and how she'd been away for days at a time. It was clear she'd been hiding a lot. The texts weren't just innocent, they were explicit, sometimes downright dirty. I saw everything: her plans, her lies, her manipulations. At this point, I knew she was lying even about her meetings. They weren't just work talks like she claimed. She was sneaking off for sex, for whatever kind of sick game she was playing with Mark. I felt a mixture of anger and disgust. How could she do this? After all the years, all the promises. I also found out that she'd been going to that remote cabin, the one I saw her in with Mark. She lied about working late, about visiting her sister. Instead, she'd been going to that place, meeting him in secrecy. I had the receipts. I had her own texts, her GPS logs, and even some photos she'd taken with her phone during those trips. I couldn't believe this was happening to me. The woman I trusted, the woman I married, was screwing around behind my back like I was some fool. Now I needed a plan. I couldn't just confront her and hope she'd come clean. No, I had to set a trap, catch her in the act again, or better yet, get her to admit everything on her own. I decided to install a tracker on her car. I wanted to know exactly when and where she was going without her knowing. I'd also talk to a private investigator I knew just to get some confirmation. I was determined to turn her lies back on her. One night, I waited until she left for another meeting, as she claimed. Then I slipped the tracker onto her car while she was in the bathroom. Watching her leave, I felt this sick sense of victory, like I was finally taking control of a situation I've been too blind to see before. I knew this wouldn't be easy, but I was ready. I'd stare down her lies, confront her with everything I had, and tell her she wasn't getting away with this. In the meantime, I kept quiet about what I was doing. I knew I had to be careful. Lisa was good at spinning stories. If she suspected I was onto her, she'd cover her tracks better, or worse, turn it around and blame me for being paranoid. I had to play this smart. Then out of nowhere, things took a sudden turn. I got an anonymous tip from someone, probably someone who saw her with Mark again, or maybe her so-called friends. They told me she was planning to leave, maybe even file for divorce first to keep her options open. Hearing that made my blood boil. I realized she was actively trying to cover her tracks, to do damage control, all while pretending everything was fine. That's when I knew I couldn't hold back anymore. I had to confront her with everything I had, force her to face her lies, and see if she'd finally own up to what she'd been doing. Thing about betrayal like this is that it shakes your entire foundation. I never expected her to cheat, let alone lie so blatantly. And as I sat there watching her go on with her secret meetings, I realized that trust, once broken, is nearly impossible to rebuild. That day, I understood I had to decide whether I was going to stay and fight for my marriage or cut my losses and walk away. Either way, I wasn't going to let her keep playing me for a fool. Not anymore. The day I decided to confront her with everything was the worst, yet strangely the most clarifying moment. I had all the evidence laid out, her texts, GPS logs, the photos, even her own words that confirmed she'd been lying about everything. The plan was simple. I'd catch her, make her face the truth, and then decide what to do next. I knew she was manipulative and bitchy, but I also knew I couldn't keep living in this constant state of paranoia and betrayal. That evening, she was supposed to return from her meeting. I was waiting in the living room, trying to keep my cool, when she walked in, her face a little too casual. She looked at me with that smirk, like she was already prepared to dismiss whatever I was about to say. I was boiling inside, but I kept my voice steady. "Lisa," I started, pulling out the phone with all the evidence I had gathered. "I know everything. I know about the texts, the trips to that cabin, the secret meetings. Don't lie to me anymore." Her eyes widened for a split second, then she scoffed and rolled her eyes. "What are you talking about? You're delusional." "I haven't done anything wrong." I shook my head. "Don't lie anymore. I've got the proof. You've been cheating on me with Mark. You've been lying about your meetings, your plans, everything. How long has this been going on?" She tried to shrug it off with her usual bitchy attitude. "Oh, please, you're just jealous. You always think the worst. Maybe I was just talking to him about work, or maybe I needed someone to listen to me. You don't understand what I go through, so don't pretend to be the victim now." I felt my fists clench. "You're full of shit, Lisa. I saw you in that bed with him. I saw you moaning, acting like you actually enjoy screwing him, so don't even try to deny it. This is over." She looked furious now, her voice rising. "You're insane. How dare you accuse me of this? You're just projecting your insecurities. I don't need to cheat on you. I get plenty of attention from other men even if I don't cheat. I do what I want and you can't stop me." That word, cheat, hit me hard. It wasn't just a betrayal, it was an assault on everything I believed in. How could she be so callous, so manipulative? I was stunned, but I knew I couldn't let her spin her web of lies anymore. "Look, Lisa," I said, voice trembling with a mix of anger and sadness. "I loved you, or at least I thought I did, but you've shown me who you really are. I don't want to be with someone who lies and cheats and treats me like I'm nothing. I'm done. I want you out of this house." She stared at me, her face contorting with rage. "You're crazy. You're just trying to control me. I'll do whatever I want. You can't force me to leave." "Watch me," I shot back, feeling the weight of everything crashing down. "I'm filing for divorce tomorrow. You can keep lying, but I have enough proof to ruin you if I want, and trust me, I will." She finally snapped. "Fine, do what you want, but you'll regret pushing me away. You're just a loser, Mike. You'll never find someone better." That was the moment I realized there was no saving this mess. The woman I once loved had become a liar, a cheat, and a manipulator. I was hurt, furious, and exhausted all at once. But deep down, I knew I had to move on, no matter how much it hurt. I packed a bag that night, not even bothering to argue anymore. I knew she'd try to spin everything to make herself the victim. But I was done playing her game. I'd gather my strength, get a lawyer, and start the process. I had faced her lies and betrayal head-on, and I knew this was only the beginning of a new chapter for me, one without her. As I left the house that night, I felt a strange mix of relief and emptiness. I had lost my wife, yes, but I had also gained clarity. I finally saw her for what she truly was, a selfish, manipulative woman who'd ruin everything for her own pleasure. It hurt like hell, but I knew I'd survive. And one day I'd find someone who'd actually respect me. Someone who wasn't a liar. Someone who wouldn't cheat behind my back. But for now, I just needed to get away from her chaos and figure out how to pick up the pieces. The days that followed were a whirlwind of emotions and logistics. I had made my decision. Divorce was inevitable. I was hurt, furious, and exhausted, but I also felt a strange sense of relief. For the first time in a long while, I was thinking clearly. No more lies, no more her bitchy attitude, no more pretending everything was fine when it was. I started talking to a lawyer, gathering all the evidence I had collected, and preparing myself for what was going to be a long, painful process, but one I knew I had to see through. In the meantime, Lisa kept up her charade like nothing had happened. She was still acting bitchy, still trying to dismiss me, even as I started taking steps to file for divorce. She'd throw her tantrums, call me jealous, accuse me of controlling her life, as if I was the one who'd done everything wrong. But I didn't care about her words anymore. I'd seen her true face and I wasn't going back. What hurt the most was seeing her try to manipulate everyone around her. She told mutual friends that I was crazy, that I was overreacting, that I was just insecure. She painted herself as the victim, the wronged wife. But I had proof, texts, GPS logs, photos. I kept reminding myself of that every time she tried to gaslight me. It was a mental battle, but I refused to let her win. One day, I finally sat down and wrote a detailed account of everything she'd done, everything I'd found, and what I knew for sure. I knew that the truth needed to come out, not just for me, but to prevent her from doing this again to someone else. I wanted her to face the consequences of her actions, and I wasn't going to let her spin her web anymore. I also told her directly that I was going to court, and I was prepared to fight for full custody of my dog and, if necessary, to protect myself from her manipulative tactics. During this process, I realized how much I'd been blinded by love. I kept asking myself how I missed the signs, how I let her get away with lying so easily. But ultimately, I understood some harsh truths. She was never the person I thought she was. She was selfish, bitchy, and unfaithful. It was a bitter pill to swallow, but it was also freeing. I didn't want to live in a lie anymore. I deserved honesty, loyalty, and respect. As I prepared for the divorce proceedings, I also started focusing on myself. I went to therapy, tried to process everything, and worked on rebuilding my confidence. I stopped obsessing over her, and instead I thought about my future. I realized that the biggest lesson I learned from all of this was about trust, how fragile it is, and how easily it can be broken. And I vowed never to ignore the warning signs again. Reflecting back, I know I could have handled things differently. Maybe I should have confronted her sooner, or perhaps I should have seen through her manipulations earlier. But no matter what, I came out the other side stronger, more aware of what I deserve. And I'm telling anyone out there in a similar situation, don't settle for someone who cheats, lies, and treats you like you're nothing. Stand up for yourself. Get the proof. Get out if you have to, because life's too short to be stuck with someone who doesn't value you. And trust me, the moment you break free, you'll realize how much better life can be. The final stretch was brutal but also oddly cathartic. I went through months of legal battles, stress, and heartbreak, but I knew I was finally doing the right thing. Lisa kept trying to manipulate the narrative, calling me jealous, claiming I was overreacting. But I had the evidence, and I was prepared to fight for my peace of mind. The court proceedings were a blur of paperwork and bitter arguments, but eventually the truth came out loud and clear. When the judge finally granted the divorce, I felt a strange mixture of relief and exhaustion. It was over. I was free from her web of lies, free from the betrayal that had poisoned my life for so long. The hardest part wasn't the legal part. It was dealing with the emotional fallout. I mourned what I thought we had, but I also knew that staying would have only made me miserable. I had to accept that Lisa was never the person I believed her to be, and that moving on was the only way forward. Over time, I started rebuilding my life. I reconnected with friends, took up new hobbies, and focused on my work. I even found solace in small things, like long walks in the woods, the same woods she once claimed to love but secretly betrayed me over. I learned to trust my instincts again, and I refused to ignore the signs of someone's true character. Looking back, I see this whole ordeal as a harsh lesson in trust and self-worth. I learned that you can't fix someone who doesn't want to be fixed. That sometimes the best decision is to walk away, no matter how much it hurts. And that honesty, respect, and loyalty are the cornerstones of any real relationship. If I could give any advice to someone in my shoes, it would be this: don't ignore the red flags. Pay attention to the small signs of betrayal because they usually lead to something much worse. Trust your gut. Gather evidence if you need to. And most importantly, never stay in a relationship where you're constantly being lied to and manipulated. You deserve better, trust me. I learned that the hard way. Now, I'm finally moving forward with a clearer mind and a stronger heart. And I hope everyone reading this can find their way out of their own darkness, just like I did.